Hello friends, welcome once again to another episode of Science Cafe, and I am your usual host, Mr. Victor. We have a chemistry class today, and the topic before us is the early history of chemistry. The early history of chemistry. Science students are very familiar with chemistry, but sometimes it poses a challenge. It's still very important for us to know where we are coming from as regards chemistry. So we'll be discussing briefly on how chemistry came about. Well, this is going to be our objectives. These are going to be our objectives for today's class. First, to briefly discuss the idea of matter according to the Greeks. Two, to briefly discuss the idea of the alchemists. Yes, alchemists, we're going to talk about that. To briefly discuss the contributions of Robert Boyle to chemistry. Some of you have heard about the name Robert Boyle. So these are the three objectives for today's class. So without much ado, let's get started. First, we want to see how the Greeks brought up the idea of matter. So we begin by discussing that. Alright, so the Greeks, they began the idea of chemistry, should I say the idea of chemical reactions. But before I talk about that, let's take our minds again to this basic everyday phenomenon, or everyday events. The cooking of food, the bleaching of our clothes, turning the lights out, colors fading in the air, colors fading in buildings, and all of that. All of these things are brought about by chemical reactions, or what we call chemical changes. Okay, so the idea here is that most of chemistry is all about chemical reactions, which brings about chemical changes. The question now is, how do these chemical changes occur? And why do they occur? These are some of the questions that we're going to be looking at today. And remember, in line with our first objective, it was the Greeks that actually thought of the idea of why chemical reactions occur. Okay? And they actually began this idea at around 400 BC. That was when that idea was conceived. Well, some of them had proposed that all of matter, because we know what matter is, anything that has mass occupies space, all of matter is composed of 4 basic elements. According to the Greeks, don't forget, all of matter was composed of 4 basic elements. The Greeks' idea of matter, they said that all matter is composed of 4 basic elements. Guess what these elements are? Can you guess? Okay, if your guess is right, then you'll be having this as the 4 basic elements proposed by the Greeks. One of it was earth, the earth we're living in. 2, air. 3, fire. And 4, water. You can imagine, these were the first basic ideas of matter, according to the Greeks. Earth, air, fire, and water. They said that the earth, all of matter is composed of these 4 basic elements. Quite interesting though, because they actually did a good job. Now, 2 key men are also very, very fundamental to our understanding of matter as it is today as well. The 2 Greeks, among other Greeks, okay, the 2 Greeks, namely Democritus and Leucippus. Now these 2 Greeks belonged to the atomist school of thought back then. The atomic school of thought, the idea of atoms, right? Yes. These 2 Greeks actually said that all matter is actually composed of tiny particles, indivisible particles known as atoms. Tiny indivisible particles known as atoms. All matter, okay, is made up of tiny indivisible particles known as atoms. Now, I could take your mind to what we're trying to say by giving you this kind of illustration. Say you have yam, right? And you try to slice this yam, and you have a knife, you slice the yam into bits, into smaller pieces of yam. As you keep slicing, there may come a point where you can no longer slice that yam. You can imagine what I'm trying to say, right? You keep slicing, 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 and you get to a point where you can no longer slice it. Right? That part, or that point where you can no longer slice the yam, could be said to be the smallest piece of that yam. Okay? And that was the idea Democritus and Leucippus promoted. They said that all of matter is made up of tiny, indivisible particles, meaning at some point you cannot divide matter anymore. That point where it is indivisible is called the atom. So they gave it this name, atoms. Atoms, tiny, indivisible. So that was the Greek idea at that point in time. But the Greeks' idea had a drawback, a major drawback, in the sense that compared to what we have now, and even compared to years later after their own ideas, the Greeks never really experimented. They never really had the facilities or the tools to experiment or to prove, their tests as to what matter was actually made up of. They relied on their thoughts and their thoughts alone. So it wasn't going to be easily acceptable by the community. So that was the drawback. But we all know today, at least they played a major role in our understanding of chemistry. So we have actually hit the first objective, the Greeks' idea of matter. Let's recap. What was the Greeks' idea of matter? They said that all matter is composed of 4 basic elements. Okay? And that these 4 basic elements are actually the cause of why chemical reactions occur. These 4 basic elements are earth, air, fire, water. Democritus of Ephesus, as well as Leucippus, came up with the idea, or suggested, or supported the notion that all matter is made up of tiny indivisible particles known as atoms. Okay, so one last recap. The Greeks' idea of matter. The Greeks said the reason why chemical reactions occur, or chemical changes occur, is because all matter is composed of 4 basic elements, namely earth, air, fire, and water, and all matter is made up of tiny, indivisible particles known as atoms. Our next video is going to take us to the second objective of the early history, why we're going to be learning about the early history of chemistry. And what is that objective? To briefly discuss the idea of alchemy, which was the next form of chemistry. We'll see you there.